So today in class we're talking about World War One. When we're discussing World War One, you guys have already learned about the four main causes: militarism, alliances, imperialism, and nationalism. And what we're going to discuss now is total war. When we discuss total war, all the countries, European countries, their colonies, are going to take everything in their society and make it involved in the war effort. So factories are going to start to produce goods for the war effort, as in shells, airplanes, ammunitions. Women will go into the factories because their men are gone and they're off at war, and they will work in the factories to produce goods to help the war. Women will also serve as nurses, and the government will use propaganda to encourage people to follow their cause. As you can see in this image, this is a factory producing airplanes. These young women, they look like they're working on shell casings or some type of industrial item that can be used in the war effort. You have nurses working in the battlefield, Red Cross. Now, when we discuss propaganda, propaganda is when you are trying to influence the way people think, okay? And during World War I, different nations will use posters to gain the support in the war effort. Whether you are in Germany or in Britain, the United States will get in the war later, but all the nations will use propaganda to influence the people in their nation to support the war and their causes. When you look right here, this propaganda is encouraging people to enlist in the U.S. Army. If you take a look at the details, the ape is wearing a helmet that the Germans wore in World War I. And if you look at the cap, it says militarism, which remember that the Germans were the first to militarize. Also, if you look at the club that he's holding, it says culture, and it's spelled with a K. So just keep this in mind. And the woman in his arms is supposed to be Lady Liberty. If you're looking at this propaganda poster, you can see that this man is pointing. If you look at his vest, it's a British flag. And it says, "Who's absent? Is it you?" So this poster is trying to get British men to join and enlist and help in the army. Liberty bonds were beneficial to the war effort. So they would tell people in the government to buy more Liberty bonds. If you're looking at this propaganda here, you can see that this American soldier is standing on top of a German soldier and he's defeated him. I want you for the Navy. So this is talking about people enlisting in the Navy and helping with the war effort. And this poster was created in 1917. And my daddy bought me a government bond of the Third Liberty Loan. Did yours. So Liberty bonds, victory gardens, things like this are going to be methods that is going to feed into total war. Every branch of society, men, women, children, the government, the industry, that industrialism that was previously making textiles are going to create ammunition, parts for tanks. We're going to encourage people to have victory gardens so that you grow your food at home so that the farmers can send food to the troops. So total war is every aspect of society being involved. Now, when we talk about the Battle of Verdun in 1916, Verdun is a valued French fortress during this time, okay? And you have to understand that Germany thinks France will defend it at all costs, okay? And what's going to happen is that Germany's going to have a goal to kill as many French as possible. They want to bleed France white, okay? And when we talk about the Battle of Verdun, there will be 400,000 casualties in just 3 months, okay? And it ends with a stalemate. If you're a little cloudy on what a stalemate means, it means you're at a draw, you're at a standstill, okay? There's no product, there's no win, no one gets the W in this situation, it's just a stalemate. Remember how we had referenced trench warfare before, and I told you that it was a deadlock? No one was gaining any ground, no one was getting a victory. At the end of the Battle of Verdun, it's a stalemate. It's kind of similar. When we talk about the Battle of Somme in 1916, what's going to happen is that the British are going to get involved, which they're already involved in the war, but their plan is to try to distract Germany from France, okay? What you're going to notice about World War I is because of trench warfare, there's going to be such a deadlock. and no one is making a gain towards a victory in this war for a very long time. And so in this battle, the British try to distract Germany, trying to get Germany off of France, because remember, Germany's fighting a two-front war for a long time, but they're really going to try to lay into France on their western border, okay? 60,000 British are going to die, and there's still no breakthrough. So we're still having a continuation of a stalemate. And the third battle of Ypres, which is in 1916, it's pretty much the same story. Nothing really changes. We're still having no breakthrough. We're still at a standstill or stalemate. Now, World War. When we talk about the World War, eventually what is going to happen is that the Ottomans are going to join into the war. And they are going to begin to control Russia's access to the Mediterranean Sea in Constantinople. So on your study guide, it asks you what the big deal is with Constantinople. Well, what happens is the Ottomans take access of that port, which does not give Russia access to the Mediterranean Sea for trade. So what will happen is that Russia is going to have to deal firsthand with the Ottomans, okay, and they're involved in the war. Now, there will be an Armenian massacre. The Ottomans thought that the Armenians had aided Russia, and they start a genocide, okay? And if you don't know what a genocide is, it's a deliberate destruction of a racial, political, or cultural group, okay? So they're going to try to destroy that population. If you ever, and I know this is a little bit of pop culture for you, but if you've ever heard of the Kardashians are Armenian. And anytime they discuss Turkey, because the Ottoman Empire is now Turkey, they always talk about how there are people in Turkey who don't acknowledge the Armenian massacre. And they're Armenian, so they're usually very offended by that. When we talk about Asian and African colonies, they will help the Allies. They help allies in hopes of independence. So what you will see is that this whole concept of imperialism is going to end up backfiring on some of the European nations that took over, as in Germany. Those colonies will try to align with the allies. They will try to, help, and maybe they will see that they will get some type of independence or freedom, okay? And you will see for a long time that imperialism is still going to carry on. When we talk about the end of the war, this is a lot to write, so I'm just going to tell you a couple points, and you can summarize at your will. When we talk about Russia, first of all, Russia is going to have a very difficult time during this time. They are very poor, because when everyone begins to industrialize, Russia is not going to get on the train. And I told you earlier in class today that Russia is going to keep their economy agriculturally based. So that means they're still big on farming. And this is going to make their nation very poor. Now, what will happen is that the Tsar, or king, is going to face opposition from the Bolsheviks, okay? And they're led by Vladimir Lenin, okay? He follows Marxism. Remember when you learned earlier about Karl Marx and his ideals on communism, okay? Russia struggled against Germany, and Nicholas II, which is the Tsar of Russia, tried to lead the military, okay? What is going to happen at home is that he's going to leave his wife, the Tsarina, in charge of Russia. Grigory Rasputin, which is a self-proclaimed holy man, which, keep in mind, self-proclaimed means that he proclaimed himself as a holy man, is going to advise Alexandria until he is murdered. And he's going to further run the country into the ground. When we talk about 1917, the revolution causes the Tsar to step down, and provisional government begins. And it is also they face the opposition from the Bolsheviks.